first let me say, I know this arc isn't very long with only a few episodes and a few chapters to it, but it is still jam-packed with so many incredible moments I just had to talk about. Even the setting of the arc Loguetown, a town of both beginnings and endings, is a perfect way of concluding our journey in the East Blue and springboarding into our journey in the Grand Line. Now I will say that the vibe of this arc was a little bit of a nice change-up, coming off of the more heart-wrenching arcs like Baratie and Arlong Park. And what I think this arc does best is concluding a part of our story, showing how far the crew has come, while also building up anticipation for the future journey into the Grand Line. So many times as I was going through the arc, I would just catch myself smiling, thinking about all the stuff that the crew had already been through, and so excited for the future journeys. And even right from the start of the arc, I absolutely loved when Luffy's first bounty arrived. It truly felt to me like the first major milestone in his journey to becoming king of the pirates. And I just remember taking a moment to soak it all in. Like, not that long ago, Luffy was drifting aimlessly in a barrel, and now he has the biggest bounty in the East Blue. So when I saw the bounty arrive and seeing Luffy's pure joy at the bounty, it just gave me this sense of accomplishment. Of course, it sounds silly because I know I didn't do anything, but how can you watch the journey up to this point and not feel attached to the crew? And if seeing the reactions of the crew members to the bounty wasn't good enough, I love how One Piece follows this up by showing us the bounty reactions by a bunch of the different people we came across in our journeys. It was nice to see what people such as Kaya, Kobe, Zeph, and even people of Luffy's village thought. And getting to see the reactions of both friends and foes on Luffy's journey I thought was a great way of circling back to this theme of both beginnings and endings in the arc. But one bounty reaction absolutely blew my mind and just opened up so many questions, and that was of course when Mihawk met up with Shanks to show him Luffy's bounty, which even saying it now still sounds crazy. Because I was just in astonishment watching a powerful character like Mihawk interact with Shanks like they were basically equals. And ever since I saw that, it made me question everything about Shanks, such as who exactly is he, what is his power level, is he on par with Mihawk, is he weaker, is he stronger, is he even a warlord of the sea? I honestly have no idea, but I just had so many questions and I can't wait to get them answered in the future. And then of course it was so heartwarming to see how proud Shanks was of Luffy when he saw the bounty, because he's basically like a father figure to him, so he was interacting like a proud father would. Or maybe even a proud older brother or something like that. I even like the brief moments in this arc where the crew is just goofing around on the ship, no real plot is really taking place, or just having some fun. Because moments like that make me smile, and I think that they really capture the spirit of adventure. Like, not everything has to be fights and stuff like that, it could just be having a grand time with your friends on this adventure. And it doesn't take long to arrive at Loguetown, a very historic place known for being where the king of the pirates was both born and died. And throughout this whole arc, as the crew kind of makes their way through Loguetown, there's this feeling in the town like the spark that the King of the Pirates lit is all but extinguished. And I love how it creates this perfect storm for Luffy to arrive with all these grand aspirations, carrying the dreams of the King of the Pirates. And then to see throughout the arc the many parallels drawn between Luffy and Gold Roger. And again, it just reinforces how perfect of a place this is, the town of beginnings and endings, for Luffy's journey in the East Blue up to this point to end, and then head into the Grand Line on his dream of becoming King of the Pirates. He now has his bounty, he has his crew, he has his ship. It's a new beginning for him, and he's kind of using this trip to Loguetown to reaffirm his dream to become King of the Pirates. Now I want to take a moment to talk about the quote-unquote villain of the arc, Captain Smoker of the Marines. Now, I will admit, I actually kind of like Captain Smoker, and I like how this arc uses a character like Smoker to reinforce both the power and even the purpose of the Marines. I'll admit, over the last few arcs, their reputation kinda took a bit of a hit in my mind, because the previous arcs have been filled with either an assortment of incompetent Marines or just outright evil Marines. But then you have this very competent character like Smoker who reestablishes their reputation in my mind. Even though he might not look like the friendliest person, he does seem to genuinely care about the safety of the civilians around him. And sometimes I have to remind myself that the way Luffy operates is very much an exception to the way most pirates do, because many pirates do some pretty evil things, so I understand the purpose of the Marines and that they, for the most part, are a force of good in the world. And so I find characters like Smoker pretty compelling because I also think he has this interesting balance between hating pirates but also respect for Gold Roger. And having read both the manga and watched the anime, I do like how the anime gives him more scenes to really flesh out his character. In the anime, he's introduced much earlier on in the arc, and I think many of the anime-only scenes with him are great additions. For example, his first interaction with Luffy, he comes across him on the docks, he doesn't know what Luffy looks like, and he's just caught off guard by Luffy, he doesn't know what to think about him. Or later, after he realizes who Luffy is, he confronts him yet again, they even get into a little fight, and he is just once again bewildered by this man. And throughout the whole arc, Smoker only seems to become more and more intrigued with Luffy, where he seems both kind of annoyed at the fact he's a pirate, but also mildly impressed and curious about him. I will say in their first fight, which only happens in the anime, not the manga, I do like how Smoker seems to handle him pretty easily, but the reason I like it is because Luffy has never really faced anyone stronger than him when it comes to villains in the story so far, excluding Mihawk because he never really fought him. So I think it works well that the foe he faces right before heading into the Grand Line is also the strongest he's faced in the entire East Blue, because it kind of builds up the anticipation and the dangers of the Grand Line like it's a step up from everything he's faced so far. Also, the feeling I got throughout this whole arc is that they're setting up Smoker to be a long-lasting villain of Luffy's. Who knows, maybe he's even going to be the guy to finally take him down? I'm really not sure, but also how they set him up in this arc, it wouldn't surprise me. Now, even to discuss Luffy a little bit more, I really do like how Luffy is just fanboying over everything associated with the King of the Pirates, and he's just soaking it all in. And they obviously make a lot of parallels between Luffy and the former King of the Pirates, which makes sense because Luffy in all likelihood will end up becoming the King of the Pirates. But I do find it's interesting that Luffy's journey comes 20 plus years after the King of the Pirates is gone. It's after a time period where people have kind of given up on the idea of finding the One Piece. And so Luffy's character, this beacon of hope, comes after many people have already lost their hope. And so there's this one scene in the anime where Luffy runs into a bartender who knew Gold Roger and has kind of given up hope that anyone will ever find the One Piece or live up to Roger's name. And Luffy comes in and he literally sees Gold Roger in Luffy. And I think it's an interesting perspective that Smoker, a man that doesn't even like pirates, he also sees the Pirate King in Luffy. Now to kind of look at the main crew throughout the arc, in the manga outside of Luffy, it's really only Zoro that gets a lot of time in this arc, whereas the other members of the crew didn't really do much. However, I do like that the anime gives some of the other crew members a little bit of stuff to do, some unique challenges in the arc, even if they could be seen as filler, I get it. I just kind of like soaking into the world a little bit more. But I like some of the subplot additions, like Sanji competing in a cooking tournament. He of course ends up winning and gets his giant fish, reinforcing his desire to find the All Blue. I also think Usopp has a nice character development moment, because he runs into a sniper, he faces him in a duel, and he cowardly tries to escape. But then he has a moment where the sniper tells Usopp about his dad Yasopp, and he realizes his shameful behavior in the moment, and he makes a life or death bet to hit a target, and he ends up succeeding. I just thought it was a nice character development moment. I hope to see future progression when it comes to being less cowardly and just being brave, and Nami kind of shops around. But outside of Luffy, Zoro gets the most time in this arc, and his encounter with the Marine Tashigi definitely caught me off guard. I realize I could just be coping, but a big part of me thinks that she is actually Kuina because of the fact she's a swordswoman, she looks exactly like Kuina, and also Kuina died off screen suddenly. Now, I get it, in all likelihood, I'm probably just coping, Kuina is probably gone forever, and Tashigi is just a different person, I get it, but I don't know, One Piece is using her to kind of mess with me. But Zoro kind of has this whole subplot where he's trying to get 2 new swords, and he wanders into a shop. I love learning about just how unique his sword actually was. So after some time, everything kind of culminates in Luffy making his way back to the platform, climbing it, and it's at this point that some enemies of the past turn up. Again, this kind of reinforces the idea of beginnings and endings in this particular town, because the very first villain of the series, Alvida, turns up, and I'll admit when she first started talking about, wait, you don't recognize me, Luffy? You've forgotten my face? I kind of thought it would turn out to be like his mom or a relative or something like that, but I was definitely wrong, so forget I said it, because she states how much she loves him because of the way he struck her, which kind of took a wacky turn. And the reveal she was Alvida definitely caught me off guard, but the one that didn't catch me off guard was of course when Buggy the Clown revealed himself. But what I certainly didn't expect was just how close Buggy would get to ending Luffy's adventure forever. He could have easily ended his life. Now of course I never thought Luffy was going to die because of plot armor and stuff like that. But obviously as a viewer you don't know how is he going to get out of this situation, and that's more the suspense of the situation. I certainly love when Luffy is asked for his final words, he remains true to his character and he yells, "I'm the man who will be king of the pirates." And again, I love the idea that this is the end of part of his journey and the beginning of a new part. So he's restating his dream in front of all these people who are just bewildered by this guy who was about to die in the same place that the king of the pirates died, and he claims he's going to be the next king of the pirates. And if this wasn't a great enough moment to see how the crowd kind of reacted, right as Buggy is about to finish the job, Luffy calls out to his friends and smiles. And I just love Smoker's reaction because he just can't believe what he just saw. And of course in the last possible moment, right as Luffy is about to die, he's saved by a bolt of lightning. And I was just speechless, not by the fact that Luffy got saved, because like I mentioned with plot armor and stuff like that, you don't expect him to die. But the way he was saved, it looked like the world of One Piece itself wants this guy to live. But then of course you learn it wasn't just a random act of nature, but it was a mysterious figure who actually saved Luffy. But again, I love taking in the moment where everyone in the crowd is looking on with total amazement, or bewilderment is a better word. And Smoker on the sidelines just so confused, like he smiled. Why did he smile? He smiled just like Gold Roger did. And I kind of get from all this that Smoker realized in that moment how big of a threat Luffy could potentially be. And at that moment it seems like he realized his life's mission was to take down Luffy. Like, this is the man who might actually have what it takes to become king of the pirates. Now, of course, Luffy and his crew make a break for it. Zoro confronts Tashigi, and it feels like they're setting up something for later. But Luffy's fight with Smoker was also interesting because in the previous fight in the anime, Smoker didn't use his devil fruit. But quickly I realized just how easily Smoker is able to handle Luffy with his devil fruit, and it actually seems a little unfair because it's Smoke, so he can hit Luffy, but Luffy can't hit him. I don't really know how he's gonna get around it, but as of right now, Smoker is way stronger, and Smoker has him pinned, only for Luffy to surprisingly get saved yet again by this mysterious hooded figure. I don't know who he is, but he's kind of the MVP of this arc because without him, Luffy would either be dead or in a cell. But anyway, Luffy and his crew, they make it to safety. And they're finally on their way to the Grand Line, and they all reaffirm their goals, which again works with the theme of this arc, beginnings and endings. And then I like how characters like Smoker, Tashigi, Buggy, Alvida, they all decide that they're also going to head into the Grand Line. So they're all being set up to be reoccurring characters in the future. But overall, I really enjoyed this arc. I thought it was a great conclusion to the East Blue Saga. It had a lot more than I was initially bargaining for in this particular arc. I was kind of expecting a little bit of an uneventful arc. You know, you would just kind of shop around and stuff like that, kind of like a pit stop, maybe look back at some of the things we've accomplished and then make a plan to head into the Grand Line. I didn't expect things like near executions and just a lot of the other things that went on. Even some of the quote-unquote filler scenes, I imagine that they were filler scenes, like Sanji's cooking competition. Personally, I like wacky things like that in anime. Brings me back to like the Food Network. Of course, I would watch Gordon Ramsay, not Sanji, but I wasn't expecting it. I really enjoyed things like that, but I understand those aren't necessarily for everyone, so I can understand why some people would like the pacing of the manga. In this particular arc, I just kind of like soaking into the world in each of these arcs as much as possible, and even some of the scenes, like I mentioned, where they're just traveling on the boat. They're not really doing much, and they're just kind of funny and wacky scenes. I enjoy the goofiness and the silliness of One Piece at times, and again, I enjoyed the East Blue in totality. Just kind of looking back, I mentioned in some of my previous reviews, the first 3 arcs, I was not really sold on the series. Like, I mean, over 1,000 episodes, over 1,000 manga chapters, but happy I continued because then it was Baratier and Arlong Park. Man, so many heart-wrenching moments in Arlong Park. I actually like the change of tune in this particular arc because not sure how much more my heart could have taken seeing another like horrifying backstory or just heart-wrenching moments all throughout. And this one was a little bit more lighthearted, you know, aside from near executions, but opening up a lot of things, a lot of new questions, especially with Shanks. I mean, I don't know who that guy is, but I was kind of thinking of him as just kind of a guy, and it looks like he's way more than just that. And I thought that this arc, but really the whole East Blue Saga, one, it introduced me well to the series, but also built up anticipation to head onto the Grand Line, which I am about to reach. I've really been waiting for this moment. I know I probably took a little bit of a hiatus for a little bit there, but I can't wait to go onto the Grand Line. And one of the things is the devil fruits. Like, we got a couple of new ones here with Alvida's one and Smoker's one, which Smoker's one was interesting because unlike some of the others, it seems like an unfair advantage. Like, Luffy can't even hit him and he can grab Luffy. I don't know, it just seems a little unfair for now. But I can't wait to see what other future devil fruits and just future people lie out there on the Grand Line, because it's really been built up to be this crazy place where you have warlords and all sorts of crazy pirates. And yeah, I know I've droned on for a little bit now, but if you enjoyed this review and you want to keep seeing my thoughts as I go through One Piece, I would appreciate you liking and subscribing. I'm loving this journey both in the anime and the manga. I really like how they're different enough where it's almost like getting 2 different stories. But what do you think? And if you want to see more of these reviews, please consider liking and subscribing for more, and thank you for watching.